Welcome, everybody, to another Homestead from Scratch. I'm Greg Dowd, and tonight joined with John Tejan of DJ Cattle Company. And we are going to talk about the topic of scarcity to abundance mindset tonight. So, hey, John, how's it going tonight, man?
It's going well, going well. Like I explained to you beforehand, I got a couple steers off to the processor, and this is the time of year where I do my processing. So the next couple of weeks, that's what we'll be doing, and then ready for a long winter's nap, I guess. I don't know. Still got to work with the cows that I do have, but getting them ready for for the processor, and paying more attention to them when it gets closer to those deadlines takes a little bit more, but should be good all winter after this.
Yeah, winter is kind of that time where you can maybe take a step back for a second and kind of look over the year at your successes, what was working, what wasn't working, and kind of make a game plan going forward from there. So
that sounds like a great topic for one of our end of the year shows. Is kind of review and kind of see things we've learned, individually and together.
Yeah, kind of an end of the year review. I think that would be a great thing to talk about. So yeah, tonight I wanted to kind of go over this idea of talking about a scarcity versus an abundant mindset. And I think a lot in our society kind of steers us towards this scarcity mentality. The world is finite with scarce resources, and that, you have to kind of claw your way to the top kind of thing to get to success in certain fields or business and things like that. Whereas I think if you've been homesteading for a little while, you've been outside in nature, you've been doing kind of stuff, with nature and kind of working with it, that you can kind of see that reality in the world that we actually live in is one that creates a lot of abundance. You look at plants and, are just briefly touching on the topic of plants last week and how they, take in the sun and water and use the earth, and, have these ways that they can adapt and learn from their environments and things like that, nature seems to find a way to replicate itself and create more and more of itself. So it seems to be very, very abundant. And I think if we can see that and observe that in nature and adopt more of an abundance mindset when it comes to solving our own problems, some would call it, I guess, the poverty mindset. Being stuck in a poverty mindset versus exiting that type of mindset.
Yeah, and when you brought up this topic, and it's one I'm familiar with, the terminology behind it basically, and the philosophy of it. And I kind of thought in my mind, I'll be 64 this month, and I lived over in Europe for a while when I was a teenager and a young adult, and visited relatives that lived there. They're German citizens. I lived in Italy. I've been around, and even when I was younger, something's changed in my lifetime. I don't know what it is, but especially, and I haven't been to Europe for 40 years practically, so it's changed too. So I'm not saying this is the way it is now, but when I was there, and even when I was a young adult in the United States, there was a certain level of hospitality when you went to somebody's house. They would immediately want to start feeding you something or giving you something. It was like when a person came to their house, it was like an honor to them. and that they would spare no, expense. Not throwing money around, but I'm just saying what was theirs was yours as a guest. And that's kind of been lost, and I think it's this scarcity mindset that people is one of the reasons why. I don't know whether it's the chicken or the egg, but it seems like people aren't as generous on a personal level like they used to be. I mean, it just seems, yeah, family members or perfect strangers are, practically we're treated almost the same way. Um, you know, with some certain exceptions, obviously. But I just think that something has changed. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's something that can be done to bring us back to that point. But regardless, the I don't know what it. I'm at a loss to figure out why it is, because and I mainly see this in the United States because it's my only experience. I can't talk about other cultures other than ones I visited and experienced. But it's like the American mindset has become that dog eat dog, scarce. I've got this. I don't want to share it because it might be the last of this I ever get, which is actually not necessarily true, and a very small percentage of that happening. But we have this, I don't want to share. I don't want to help this, helping people out. Yeah, in disasters, people do that. But I'm just talking on a day-to-day basis. Hey, just helping people out that don't even ask for help, and it just, I don't know how we can change that, but I certainly have recognized that it's changed in my life.
Yeah, we come from a couple different eras, as far as how old we are and what we've experienced. And in me personally, I guess growing up in the age, just I guess I'm kind of right on the cusp of the internet developing and like being a terminally online person. But I think that maybe that's the difference is that a lot of our needs have been taken care of, as far as like, people can have easy access to go into the grocery store and buying food, and you know relatively abundant on the shelves, and that there's a lot of conveniences that maybe weren't there in the past, and people had to maybe kind of work together a little bit more. Maybe some of the social program, not as many social programs back in the day. um, but but yeah, I do see that as a society, and even like between when I was born and my younger brothers, that I guess the one that's closest next to me in age is about 3 years difference. But in that 3 years difference, um, he was more online and plugged in with video games and chat rooms and doing all that kind of stuff, where more of their interaction was virtual instead of in
Mm-hmm.
person to person interactions and stuff like that. Meeting your buddies down to play a like sandlot game of football, or go and play in hide and seek with your friends, or building a fort out in the woods, or some of those more in person type things that I've kind of experienced that much of a difference between me, who's only a few years older than my two younger brothers, kind of going from the 80s, on forward. Like I was late 80s kind of kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so yeah, I think in that regard, like the people that have grown up with the internet and done a lot of their social interactions through a computer screen, um, that I guess you're kind of more isolated. And
Well,
because of that
that's
isolation, there's more of a individualist kind of mentality, or I don't need other people. I can, as long as I have my gateway to the internet and I can order everything and it's instantaneously arriving at my house, then all my needs are met and I don't have to rely on other people so much.
I think that's a really good point, and I was thinking about that when you were saying that. Is like, um, you know, uh, you use the term they're more individual or individualistic. They are, but they aren't. They're just isolated, and
Yeah.
they absolutely um, lack the experience. And I know this was overdone, maybe in your generation, and the helicopter parenting and the soccer games and the travel league, this, and just overly managing a young person's life and not allowing them freedom to just, pardon the French, but just fuck around and do shit, you
Yeah.
know and when they weren't in those highly organized social groups like soccer or baseball or whatever it might be, or hell, theater at school or whatever it might be, there wasn't any time to develop that person in a free form way, and they don't know how to experience that. And I think what that is, when we're talking about abundance and scarcity, is they've just not been exposed to a actual live in-person setting of where people are sharing what they have and learning from each other and accomplishing a goal outside of these overmanaged sports teams. Of I can remember, maybe you have the same memory as a kid, is like you and your buddies went out to the woods and built a tree house or a fort, right?
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah. We
go
would
in,
do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
you'd go into the garage and take a hatchet and a saw and take it from your parents and hope nobody knew that you didn't lose it or something. And you just you used your imagination, you worked with other people and made something work. They were shitty tree houses, they were shitty forts. Nobody could ever live in them. They were not very good. I'll be the first one to say that. But that builds a certain level of abundance mentality when you're able to accomplish goals cooperatively with other people, because you learn to trust them. It's like, yeah, I need this, here, go ahead, take it. You need to build that over there, go do that. It's not like, I don't know, I might need that piece of lumber, so I think I'm just going to keep it for myself. you know so I think all of those social things have kind of brought us to where we are in this whole scarcity versus abundance mindset. And I think a lot of it is just the way society has there are good things and bad things about society moving forward. This is one of the downsides, I think. And I don't know how you get that back, how you try to get those people involved in things like that. But volunteering obviously is one thing. It's a great thing to do, because you're not it's not costing you any money, but you're giving of your time freely to somebody else who needs it. And and that's not common. It's people do it, but not as much, I don't think, as they used to.
Yeah. I think the core is the way that the system of educating young people is set up. It's part of the equation, I believe, today. And the topic for today, I believe, is partially inspired by a conversation I had with one of my coworkers this week. So we
Cool.
started getting into this conversation and just talking about random things, and eventually leading to where I think is part of the issue is through the education system as it currently stands. And thinking that the problem can be solved by throwing more money at it, and something will change. um, a while back, I got to run across a video that was put together by Richard Grove, and he had a sit down with John Taylor Gatto, who was in the school system and had gone and done a lot of things in education, but he basically was doing some very radical things in the public school system by finding out what the kids were interested in and basically giving them free range to leave the school premises in his classroom to go pursue the things that they were interested in. And he did some very, very cool things with like having one of the girls that was interested in swimming to go and create basically a catalog of all the hours of the different pools while and their opening and closing times and what it took to join the pools and how who to talk to for access. And then that got like distributed out to like the local libraries and stuff like that. And she took that initiative to go and figure out all that stuff on her own. And so and then other stories of just like kind of giving the kids the resources to help them solve a problem of an area of interest that they had, to pursue something of interest that they had, and found that these kids that were like in these inner city schools that he was teaching at that had like the society would deem these kids as like not having no chance to learn, and they're just like these kids that everybody's given up on because they're always making a ruckus in the classroom. They don't want to learn. They're not going to be able to achieve anything, is where they put these kids, and found that they flourished extremely by giving them this like help in pursuing these areas of interest that they had. So it really like kind of sparked the creativity in their minds and being able to solve problems on their own. And I think that in our education system, it kind of puts us in a scarce mindset because our creativity gets stifled and we're not learning how to learn or how to critically think and solve problems. We're basically memorizing and regurgitating information. Now that's only one part of the issue. Like I said, also being isolated in front of the screens, I think, is another component, and not having the necessity to have more of a social community where people are helping each other out in various ways and things like that. So I think it is a multifaceted thing, but part of the issue is through the educational component for sure.
Yeah, I was actually reading something today, and I was actually stunned by the number when I read it, and I researched it and looked, not just took the person's tweet or whatever off of social media as gospel, but it's true that 40% of the students in the United States in the primary school system or secondary school system, do not read at a basic level. That's like one step above illiteracy.
Yeah.
They barely can read. 40% of the students. That's just, that's just kind of a basic skill there. That's, if you can't get that right, there's a lot wrong with that system, and education aside, it's also, school has always been a structure of socialization. You learn how to act around other people, period. Just real basic, and whether you're talking about the purple dinosaur Barney and learning how to share things when you're a kid, I don't know where all that went wrong, because it just, they don't have, and you talk to employers right now, they don't have social skills for office type work and communicating. They can write an email and they can get in a chat group, but they can't sit down and talk to somebody and explain what they need to do or the help that they need and communicate on a one-to-one basis, face to face. Now, people are like, well, that's not really all that important. Yeah, it is, because that informs you of the place that you occupy in society. You're not an isolated person who's just a member of a chat group out floating in space, and I think that's a big mistake we're making. I think it's a mistake, although I am benefiting from it in my job of being able to work at home now. Yeah, I'm a bit isolated, but I'm kind of at the end of my career and the end of my curve. I'm not learning anything necessarily new anymore. I'm just kind of doing my job that they hired me to do, right? And so, and as an aside, and I know we don't necessarily get into politics too much, but this whole idea of going through government and getting rid of people and leaning out government, somebody made a really good point. Most government, a large portion of government employees work at home now, and all they're going to have to do is force them to go back to the office, and they'll all quit. It's true. It's true. Right. A large number will quit if they're forced to go back to the office.
You're probably right about that. Yeah.
And that, because everybody's kind of comfortable with that. I'm in my own bubble here, and not saying there's anything wrong with it or productivity is lacking or anything like that, but I think the connection to your business and your coworkers, while being in a chat room or on a Zoom meeting is fine. There is something to be said about face-to-face with another human being and accomplishing things together and cross-fertilizing ideas and, moving, whatever part of the business you're in forward.
This is changing the world quite. It has changed the world quite a bit, this remote working, and a lot of the people that were in the tech fields moving to other countries, like I just watched something earlier, and Andrew Callahan, Channel 5 on YouTube, talking about how a lot of these so-called digital nomads have moved into Mexico City and have caused the prices to increase in Mexico City, and keeping a lot of the people that are local there, kind of shoving them out of the market, so to speak, because of all the price increases.
Yeah. Then they just find their way to the border and come to the United States. So we're basically swapping people, right?
Yeah.
We're sending our smart tech people down there to live, remotely, and it's forcing conditions there to be bad to where natives down there want to come up here, right? Illegal.
Well, I think it has something to do with their taxes too. Like when they're working down there, I think they're still paying their local, country taxes, but they're not paying any local taxes. So the state down there is like kind of like,
right,
we're not getting our piece. So.
Well, and this is one thing I actually have thought about for a long time when I was, looking to retire and, what I was going to do and where I was going. Obviously, I'm on a farm raising cattle and I love doing that, but there'll be a time that I'm going to be too old for that, and I'm going to be too old to, take care of a 30-acre farm and all the things that need to be done, because it is a lot of work, just maintaining land in a reasonable shape is constant work, and buildings and things like that. But I was thinking of there's a lot of countries that are just begging, especially Americans, to, like Italy, Sardinia, Greece, a lot of those Southern European countries who have basically, they're depopulating is really what is happening. These small rural cities, beautiful little towns, very quaint, and they're like, come here, if you, and basically what it is they want to make sure that you have an income, hopefully guaranteed, which means you're on Social Security. and that they can count on that check hitting the bank in their local economy and that money going into their economy. That's what they're missing. There's no, when people leave, their paychecks leave, and when their paychecks leave, then businesses don't have the business thing, and it just slowly collapses,
Right.
which actually happened in our country in a lot of these rural farming communities. That's happened, and it still happens to this day. It's kind of reversed itself because of the very thing we're talking about, is remote working and people leaving bigger cities and going out into maybe rural areas to find a place to live, and they can work there. So that is kind of corrected a little bit, long way to go, but that's just a modern thing of these societies that are becoming depopulated and falling apart, and you lose your tax base, and it's a mess. So they're paying people to move here. We'll give you $30,000 to pay for legal fees, taxes on property that you're going to buy. We'll give you permanent resident status, meaning, and just like most people in Europe, if you're a permanent resident, well, you automatically qualify for their healthcare system. So you're covered by their healthcare system. Might not be what you're used to in the United States, but if you don't have some complicated disease when you're older and you're just an old person that needs, your eyes looked at, and, a doctor check you over a couple times a year, that's an option, and that's, that's just an outgrowth of all of this stuff happening. And I guess it gets back to, this is a very, our period of life is there's this huge social upheaval going on that it's in slow motion, but it's happening. And you see it in the papers every day, right? It's a big social change, just like the decade I was born in the 60s was a huge decade of social upheaval, and things changed dramatically back then. I mean, politics changed, people changed, people's, cultural and moral compasses pointed in a different direction at the end of the decade. And, and that's just human existence. That happens. But I think that getting back to scarcity and abundance, I think, if people can adopt a little bit more of an abundant mindset about the world and that we live in, it's not like you're going to starve to death. It's not that, I mean, we're in the richest country in the world, probably, although the standard of living is slipped somewhat. It's still a land of opportunity and not a place to, sit there and hunker down and not engage with other people and share what you have. Obviously we were talking about, especially homesteaders. I don't think anybody's ever planted a garden that was successful. I have to put that caveat on there because many of them aren't. But a successful garden, you never plant it just right. You're going to have more food than you're going to be able to eat. Right. You're not going to go. I mean, and some people, maybe they'll put up all of and can everything that they grow and put it in the root cellar or in the pantry or whatever, and they don't share that with people. I think that is fairly rare. I think people want to share their abundance, especially when it comes to food, and they put work into it, right? And I think that's a lot of the scarcity and abundance mindset is like, yeah, I got all this, I got all that. I didn't really have to work that hard for it. But when you make a garden, and it's a very spiritual thing, is you're working on the land, making it grow, raising food. That's an important thing. And that it takes some work, and it takes some, as we've talked on here, it takes experience. You're going to make mistakes. But when you're successful, you just want to share it with people. You don't want to brag about it because, it's not a lot to brag about, but our form of bragging as homesteaders is sharing what we have with other people.
Well, it also leads to the creation of more abundance as well. So
yes.
say if you have some type of seed or crop that you're growing successfully or whatever, I think that it was a custom at one point in time that you would swap seeds with your friend or your neighbor that was growing a different variety of crop, and you would like plant their crop this season, and you would be swapping seeds with each other. And basically that was like helping the genetic diversity of the entire food system in the local
Right.
area, as one of the things that Alan was talking about he was talking to us about that recently, and I
Right.
think he gave a presentation on that at Self-Reliance Festival, as well as
Mhm.
something that can be done in our communities to basically help the genetic diversity again, and bring more genetic diversity into our plants and get them more, um, basically get them saving the seeds from the harvests of the local areas and getting them more adapted to the local environments, so that we're not buying seeds that may be saved and distributed from other bioregions in the country and just mass set out to everybody across the
Or
country.
parts
So
of the world, even, you know. I mean, you don't know where the seed comes from, you know. I mean, there are reputable seed companies that grow their own seed, but most of these big seed places, they just buy the seed, you know, from wherever they can get it cheaply, you know. Yeah, it's the variety that is on the label. It's not like they're false advertising. It's just that there's a lot to be said about you know, naturalizing your crops to the local environment, um, because that's the most important thing. I don't care if it grows well in California. If it doesn't grow where I'm at, it doesn't do me any good, you know, because you go through these seed catalogs and you see all these beautiful produce, and it's like, well, where'd they grow that at? You got to find out where they, you know, and so that really, that abundance mindset of sharing your seed with other people is super important. But there's a prerequisite for that. You got to get to know your neighbors. You got to get to know people. You can't, you know, you might be able to put on Facebook in your local community group, hey, I'm looking for to swap seeds, and that's probably a good place to start to meet people, right? But you've got to eventually meet those people and talk to them and trade, you know, your ideas, and that's only going to make communities stronger. We can't do it at the end of a, you know, internet connection. We can, it can facilitate some good stuff, but in the end, we got to go out there and meet these people and maybe see how they're doing things and trading, you know, ideas, you know, as opposed to, see, for industrial farmers, it's a completely different mindset. It's like they, it's bragging rights. How many bushel of corn you got off of your land, and they'll brag about it all year long until next year. And they'll be, you know, and they'll give each other a hard time, you know. But that's because that's the industrial mindset. Bigger, faster, um, you know, more horsepower, you know, a bigger plow, a bigger combine, you know, more chemicals, the latest genetics in seed, you know, so on and so forth. Whereas homesteaders, it's like, no, I want to do it a little. The inputs need to come down. I'm not going to go and brag to my neighbor and say, look what how well I did. Well, you can do that, but you're also going to go and taste this tomato. Doesn't it taste fantastic? Yeah. And here's the seeds. Well, if I give you the tomato, you got the seeds, right? So you just you just have to kind of do your own guerrilla, you know, gardening there. You know, if somebody gives you something that they grew in their garden that was successful in your area, you know, that's the way to do it. You know, well, give me some of those. Let me try those. If they're good, save the seed. You know, but it's all predicated on getting out there and being with other human beings, you know. And that's again, that's what we're kind of talking about, this isolation, and especially young people who've never experienced that, you know. You know, they just have not experienced what some social cohesiveness and accomplishing goals together with other people, which is like really important to develop somebody's mindset properly.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that we can do that is by doing some kind of side hustles and getting together in smaller groups and kind of testing out our ideas together. I think in some capacity we've been doing a little bit of that with our Freedom Cell group, and
Mhm.
guys in the group have been able to kind of pitch some ideas and to the group and kind of see where things might have some potential for side hustle opportunities in there, and things have developed from that. I know Sean Mills pitched his kind of Kickstarter campaign for and had a successful one, but he's kind of connected into a larger network as well, being able to promote it on different podcasts like Jack Spirko and Nicole Sauce's podcast and things like that. But yeah, other guys in our group like yourself, and then um, Logan, being able to kind of connect and get things done through that, and then our other buddy putting together these little Meshtastic nodes and things like that. So I'd like to see us work on more of those kind of things, and how we can build up some kind of other different entrepreneurial efforts that people are interested in, and maybe use the group as a way to try some of those things out. And then kind of connected to the broader community. And I know there's an effort as well to kind of like be able to connect more of the groups that are doing these kind of things together, as well, is kind of happening. So yeah, it would
Do you
be
mean
cool.
more? Do you mean more on like a nationally connected basis, more outside of the regional groups, or just expanding
More of just the regional groups being working together with each other and communicating
Right,
with each
right.
other.
Because I know we have uh, an associated group of ours down in Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only connector we have right now. But I mean, if anybody's listening to this, by all means, pitch in. If you have a group or want to start a group or whatever, because that's where it starts out, is getting a couple people together over a cup of coffee and go, hey, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, is like, people coming together and figuring out, like, what kind of skills do you have, where, kind of becoming that network where you're like, okay, well, go talk to this guy if you need this, or, I know this guy over here if you need that. And it kind of becomes like it becomes somewhat of a circular economy, I guess.
Right. But
Um,
I think one area, I mean, just spitballing here some ideas, and it's something I was going to do anyway, eventually, with my cattle business, is homeschool groups. Because those are usually pretty tight groups of people. They're all have a fairly consistent philosophy about things. I think they're natural. If they're not homesteaders or preppers, they understand the importance of that, right? I think they're self-supporting groups already, for educating their kids. And it would be great if we decide to, I know we had a workshop on doing the mushroom logs with the folks down in Birmingham. Um, you know, but do that and market that and get some homeschool groups together and say, hey, you know, because that's real interesting for kids. The science side of it is how these mushrooms grow in logs, It's kind of, you can make it an educational thing, but it's also, you can probably sell some logs.
Yeah. No, you're right on the point with that. I really do think like that is all the educational component of a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of opportunity there, I think,
Well,
because
and it's also a way of attracting people,
yeah, it's
It's,
an event and it's a social event. It's a learning opportunity. It's a business opportunity. It's kind of all those things wrapped in one. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I've always thought that homeschool groups would be a good group of people. And there are probably others. I haven't really thought that much, but there are groups that are kind of built for this. I mean, I was down in Huntsville last week, and Jay's mom, Aunt Young, she was in charge of the presentation for the Eagle Forum that they have down there. It was it's at the library there in Huntsville, and and they're basically, I guess they're probably all Republican, assuming they spend most of their time working on legislative projects in order to get laws passed in Alabama to support, what they're interested in. They're very big on election integrity and manning polling locations and stuff like that. But they're also big on being prepared for, natural disasters and food scarcity and stuff like that. So I got 4 new customers down there, or potential customers. They haven't bought anything yet, but it's like some of these groups they're just gold mines for the type of people we want to interact with and help kind of build that local and regional community. Now they might not, and we have to be very open about that. They might not agree 100% on everything that we do, but we're not here to create a cult or a group. We're here to help other people, number one, and make the communities we live in more resilient and more survivable in case of a problem. That's
Absolutely.
it's not that you have to agree with me on every issue or idea or politic or philosophy or even religion. It's just we're here. That's not our purpose. It's not in our operating, guidelines. We're here to, help. We're an educational group, and self-help group too. But yeah, I think reaching out to these types of groups would be, probably, we'll build our group up a little bit, but we'll have more effect on the local economy and community, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well said, John. I really hadn't thought of that angle before, but you're right on. I mean, you're right on with that. I think that that's somewhere that I think I know some people that I can talk to that are doing the homeschool. I know that personally they homeschool, so
and they're usually in groups, right? They're kind of
yeah, they do this like I don't know what specifically they called it, but it's like something like the moms kind of share teaching, I guess. And
yeah, well, they share resources, and then they'll organize field trips, because that's their great way to learn, the kids to learn. And farms are a great place for kids to learn stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. You could go into a whole thing on soil science and the plant science and
Right.
biology and all kinds of
Right.
things on the farm.
Right.
Yeah,
Once you get past the, hey, can I pet your dog, and can I hold a chicken, and obviously they enjoy that too. But when it gets down to the learning aspect, you got a fairly captive audience there. Getting a busload of kids from a public school, that'd be like the last thing I'd ever want to do. because there's
Right.
just there's no motivation there. There's no motivation there.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I'm speaking broadly about homeschooling because they're all different, and I'm not going to build them up to be the greatest thing ever, but most of them are fairly self motivated and focused on what they're trying to do, and they're open to stuff like that, and so yeah, we should definitely work on that. I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was part of the conversation that I had with the coworker, was kind of talking about, if people don't want to participate in that public school system, that having the option to do something differently, which everybody does if you're in the US. I think at one point they made it, maybe in certain states it was a little bit more difficult to do homeschooling, but now I think there's kind of been a lot of people that have pushed for it over the years and kind of fought that battle. And if you wanted to homeschool your kid, there's nothing, I think, that impedes you from doing so. So um and I think that is where a lot of that and families and communities coming together to help each other out, and through educating that next generation on that's how the future will change, is if those next generation of kids figure out that they really don't need, or don't need to be as dependent on the system, and they can solve those problems, um, outside of it. As there's a lot of ways to solve your problems without needing to be as dependent on uh, external systems. Like, if you can
Mhm.
work through your neighborhood and through your community and through your family, uh, that the solutions can be found there without having to get it from mommy and daddy government, basically.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about the social upheaval maybe that we're going through right now. It's a lot of opportunity there, because things are so up in the air. But again, I kind of think back to my 60 years on Earth and what's happened and how maybe we got here. But the whole self-reliance thing was never, and I'm only speaking of myself, and the type of world I grew up in is, you your dad had a job and he went out and he worked all day and he came home and did whatever, but his job, which you didn't even know what the hell he did because he just left every day and did something, and and that was the model for you, right? You just, okay, so I've got to get a job and I got to go do this and I got to pay taxes and we've got a mortgage, and it's just like there we lost the bit because we're no longer as rural as we used to, where you need to actually have those skills. But they're vanishing quickly, and we've talked about that many times. That one of the things that we want to do is actually preserve some of these skills that are really important. And they just kind of fade away and aren't even thought to be important by the average person because they never have to use them. They never even think of using them. And again, they've not experienced you know, that coming together as a community to accomplish something. I remember as a kid, um, you know, we would go out on the weekend with 3 or 4 friends of my dad, and they all had pickup trucks, and they all had kids about my age, you know, and we'd go out. I don't know where it was. I'm assuming it was legal, and cut firewood, right? You know, and just load up trucks full of firewood, and as a group, do that. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I don't see people doing that anymore. I mean, there's people that cut firewood, obviously, but I mean, coming together as a community. Hey, you got a chainsaw, you got a pickup truck. Let's all go over to, this forest. It was.
John, I think your internet is cutting out on you or something, but
We froze up there for a second. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, you were talking about guys loading
yeah,
up. Somebody's got a chainsaw, go jump in the truck. Well, let's go find some dead fall trees or something.
right.
Cut
And
them
you
up
did,
for firewood.
and you did that as a group, and I don't think that was all that different for, back in the 60s and 70s. That was still a thing, but just nowadays it's like, no, you just get on Facebook and see if somebody's got firewood for sale and have them deliver it to you, and that's it. That's your contact with providing firewood for your family. You just pay for it.
Well, it is somewhat of a double-edged sword. I did listen to a interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking to Joel Salatin recently. I think they must have recorded it while he was still on his presidential campaign. And they just recently had released it, but in there he kind of talked about how the small artisan farmer now has a better ability to market their stuff through the use of the internet. But it is the impediments of the regulatory bodies which say that, well, you can't quite sell your thing unless it goes through these certain channels,
Right.
which for small farmers can make it more can make it harder to compete with some of the larger farmers. But he was talking about how through the use of the internet is somewhat Uberized these artisan homesteading kind of smaller farm operations into being able to give it a go at competing with some of these
Right.
larger conglomerates of large food or big ag.
Right.
Big
Right.
agriculture.
And that's super important. And hopefully the regulations will moderate a little bit, and that will become much more viable, because one of the things we kind of wanted to go over is side hustles, and that's one thing I think people maybe understand or don't understand about people who farm for a living. It's like, yeah, that crop out in the field is important to the survival of that farm, but they're making money 5 or 6 different ways to support themselves. And it's those are all side hustles, but that comes naturally for somebody that owns land, because you can do a lot with a piece of land. If you don't have land to work or develop, that's kind of difficult. It's kind of one of those key components. You got to have some land that you can grow something on, cut trees down, whatever it is. Raise animals, make cheese, whatever. If you don't have the land to do it on, it's kind of tough. You can lease land and so on and so forth, but those side hustles, whether it's my advice for some young person that's either getting out of school or never went to school or doesn't care about school, or but wants to support themselves, the first thing you should buy, and it doesn't have to be new, but the only vehicle you should be driving is a pickup truck, because a pickup truck can make you money just by hauling stuff to the dump for somebody. Here, I'll pay you $50 if you take this load of garbage to the dump. I'm cleaning out my garage. If it's got a hitch on it and halfway decent engine, and you got a trailer, you can even haul more stuff. It's like, it's kind of one of those essential things that I don't think people think about as far as vehicles. Yeah, people want a car to drive back and forth to work, But if you're a young kid and you're enterprising,
And
you need a
you don't need a damn new truck that you can't scratch up. You need something
no,
that'll
no,
take some scratches and stuff. Yeah,
no.
older truck.
But they're a way to make money, And I mean, I was thinking about that a while ago, and I was thinking about, maybe not working and going into pre-retirement and just doing stuff. It's like, well, the first thing I need is and I have a pickup truck, but it's like, okay, how can I put that to work? How can I make money with that? And it's easy to make money with the truck, because people need stuff hauled all the time. I mean, you just go on Facebook and hey, I need somebody to haul this for me to here. Okay.
That was a good suggestion. I think listening to one of Jack's podcasts was talking about a guy that had a pickup truck and some kind of dump trailer or something, and
uh,
he'd haul stuff for people. And I think he was an older guy, and he'd have, I don't know, I guess he'd get them to load it or unload it or something. I mean, if you got a dump trailer, you can just, if you're hauling something to take away, I guess you can just go park your dump trailer at their house. They throw all their stuff in there, and you go haul it off to the landfill or whatever, and you just dump it with your hydraulics.
right.
So,
And I think that's, that's something. And another thing you'll always find is like, okay, you start doing odd jobs like that, opportunities just come your way all the time. Well, I know you hauled this for me, but I was thinking about this other thing. It's like, let me see if I can make that work, Because there's people that started that with just a pickup truck, and then pretty soon they own dump trucks and they own their own hauling business after a couple years, because these opportunities come to them. People always need work done. And if you got the equipment, and I mean, you can get into light construction with skid steers and so on and so forth, and small construction equipment, because people in the country always need work done all the time. And the day of hiring 10 laborers to come out and dig a ditch is over with. You're going to get the guy with the backhoe and it'll be done in about 2 hours. And that just takes entrepreneurial mindset and an abundance mindset. It's like, I'm gonna have faith that I bought this truck and it's gonna make me money, and I'm gonna go out and do it. And you're not gonna sit there and go, oh, I don't know if I can do that, I don't know anybody. And that's
that would, I talking to one of the guys, Tim Cook, that I interviewed, runs the Toolman Tim YouTube channel. But that was one of the things that he talked about was, instead of saying, well, I can't afford this thing, or, there's no way I'll be able to do that, to tell yourself, how can I make that happen?
right.
And what can I do to make that happen, instead of, that first thing that you think about is like, oh, well, I'll never be able to do that because I just don't have the resources for it. But to say, how can I make that happen? And then just start, taking the steps and trying and doing some things, taking actions so that you can make a little bit extra money to get you closer and closer to that. And
yeah, because I know that I've hired people, to do some work on my farm, especially with some heavy equipment, and some of them, because a skid steer is expensive. Hell, a brand new one probably costs close to $100,000 if you're going to buy a brand new one, but you can buy used ones for maybe $10, $15, $20,000 that, still have some time left on them. And that's going to be a lot more than most people have initially. If you know what people do, they go, okay, I got this job. It's going to make me $2,000. What do I need? I need a skid steer. Well, I can go down to the rental place, and for $500, I can rent it for the weekend, do the job. That's calculated in the cost of the job. You come away with $1,500 in your pocket. You do that a couple times, you're going to have enough money to buy one in a while. And it's probably, yeah, it sounds stupid easy because it is, but nobody wants to take that step. Now, you got to learn how to run heavy equipment, obviously, so you can't be, just got done, graduated from high school and you've never done anything, you might not want to, start tearing somebody's,
Well,
property.
there is something to say of doing something trial by fire and kind of doing a good enough job to get paid, I guess, in the beginning,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
just start building on those skills because, yeah, you might not have the total skills to be like an expert at something if you're just getting started, but at the more and more you're doing it, the better and better you're going to get at it.
Yeah, because if you never get behind the wheel, you're never going to learn, and you're going to make mistakes, and that's, but the younger you are, the less that even matters. Because guess what?
You got plenty of time to keep making mistakes
Yeah.
and
And
them not
people,
be catastrophic, basically.
you can recover from it, and you know what? People kind of expect it too. It's like, yeah, this is a young kid. I'm helping him out. He's doing a job. Yeah, kind of screwed it up, but
Started off with nothing, and I still got most of that left.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I got pretty much most of that left. But yeah, all those things people can really, and hopefully we've given people a couple ideas just to think about, and it's abundance. It's not about being scared and scarcity, about what's going to happen or how am I going to take care of my family. I mean, Logan, I mean, he's not here tonight. He's got a family matter to take care of, and we wish him well. But I mean, he's a perfect example. I mean, he's a handyman and he does 100 different things. He's a guy you'd want to talk to, and he I'm sure he'd kind of back us up on this idea that we're talking about. But he's a great example of somebody who actually does that.
Yeah, he's finding every way he can turn 50 cents into $5, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and he's got a family to take care of. You could have somebody in the same situation and they would never do what Logan does because they're scared. They're scared that, I can't do it. And so they'll go and work some shitty 9-to-5 job because it's safe, and it might barely pay the bills, but, it's this kind of mindset that it's somehow that's secure, which it's the furthest thing from it, as we all know. So yeah, so it's a great opportunity for people to expand their ability to make money as even just a side hustle. I'm talking about doing a small construction job. You can do that on the weekend after your full-time job during the week, and it is a side hustle. You just go ahead and book one or two jobs over the weekend, rent a machine, collect the money, take the machine back, rent it again next weekend. That's what they're there for.
You're totally right. Yep.
But see, most people their brain doesn't even function that way because that's just the way they've been socialized and the way they've been raised. And it's like that entrepreneurial spirit, that money making, a lot of times that's passed down in families. You got an uncle, he's doing odd jobs and making money all over the place. And, it's like, that's what he does. And that's, and he's successful at it. And then, so you're more likely to try to do something, but if nobody in your family's ever done anything like it, it's going to be hard for you to get off that kind of first ledge and just like take the dive. Let's do it.
Yep. Well, we've been coming up on an hour. I think we could probably talk about this for quite a while because
yeah.
A pretty good topic. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but John, thanks for coming on with me tonight. And yeah, Logan, we wish him the best. Hope his family's doing okay, and hopefully be back next week. But yeah, where can people find you and support you if they want to?
Yes, I'm a DJ Cattle Company. I'm on X as Soul Survivor 78. You can catch me there, and we're all good. I'm here pretty much every Sunday night.
Well, excellent. And I'm Greg Dowd, and this is my channel, The Tinker Tribe, and working on getting some more interviews lined up for the channel, and then continuing our journey of documenting building a cabin out on my property that we're turning into a hip camp venture, talking about side hustles. So I hope you guys got some value out of this tonight. If you did, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, let somebody know about it if they can get some value out of it, and appreciate you for coming by to check it out. So we'll see you later, and we'll see you later, John. Thanks again.
Awesome. Yep.